Well, welcome back to Dad's Guide to Thrive. My name's Israel Smith, your host, and today I'm joined by Jeff Wenberg. Now, Jeff is an entrepreneur and marketer, has been for over 10 years. He has a family. He has two amazing young kids, Elsie and Mac. He's been married since 2013, and he has encountered all sorts of fun adventures on the path from being a single rock out dad on guitar single rock out guy on guitar through to, going through a bit of a corporate progression in his work and then married, children and all of the things. So I'm really excited to have a bit more of a chat with Jeff to learn about your adventure and some of the things you've struggled with, some of the things you've worked on personally to help improve who you are and how you show up for the people you love the most. So firstly, welcome to Dad's Guide to Thrive. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is exciting stuff.
Yeah, it's like, to me, it's a really simple but a really underserved conversation, I think, right? Where dads can just kind of connect up and just say, hey, it's okay to mess it up, and here's what I've been struggling with. What about you? Like a lot of the time we kind of we hide behind the superficial of, hey, did you see the game? And what about those buffalo wings? And that's about it, right? So it's it's kind of nice to dig a little deeper and have some real raw
and as you
conversations.
dig, it's kind of funny that like everybody generally is like kind of experiencing the same stuff. It's just how open they are to talking about it. Because like when you find somebody that will open up, it's always like, oh, I know exactly what you mean.
Exactly. Oh my God, I'm not the only person who experiences these things. Yeah,
exactly.
totally.
Yeah.
I literally had that experience about 6 months ago where I live. And like, for context for you, I know some of the people listening will have probably heard me talk about this, but I live in a little tiny surf village of about 1,500 people halfway between Sydney and Brisbane on the East Coast. So we're in the middle of nowhere, relatively speaking. And, small town, not a whole lot of diversity, not a whole lot of broad, open-minded thinking. There's a lot of fairly rusted on belief systems and things around our area. But just quite by chance, I started chatting to another dad at our kids' sports carnival through primary school, through their elementary school. And he was talking about meditating and doing like the Wim Hof cold exposure and, doing some other stuff and connecting with men at this retreat. And I'm like, oh my God, please come closer. Let's talk more. So, we've got like a semi-standing coffee catch up for exactly that reason, just to connect with someone like-minded. It's unreal. So
absolutely.
For the benefit of our listeners, give us a bit of background on, your life and your journey so far to being where you are with, wife, two kids, steady, amazing job and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So, I started out, like early on, just like really enjoying music. And Elvis was like my main guy and, wanted to be Elvis. And my brother and my dad were like super into the Beatles, and it was always like, like just music and music and music. And then about like 14 ish, like I had been playing guitar since like fifth grade, but like it was kind of, like I played guitar, but it was like I used it as a scapegoat to get out of stuff I didn't want to do. Oh, I got to go practice. But by that point, I like started really picking it up, and then I saw a guy named Johnny Lang, and it was like blew my mind. It was like, that's what I want to do. That's insane. And then like really started like playing, and then we started like getting gigs around the city I lived in. Eventually, I moved to Minneapolis, where I live now, to go to music school. And then I graduated there and started a band here, and just like did the whole like hustle of like getting gigs, trying to like write songs and all that stuff. And then we decided we were going to move to Nashville to pursue music, and that was about 2008, I guess. And then right after we decided, I met my wife, and it was like, well, I'm leaving in like 6 months. But there was like a really solid connection. And so we ended up kind of doing long distance for about a year when I moved to Nashville. And then she moved to Nashville with us. And then bless her heart, she lived in a house with like four dudes. And she came
That's
out on
brave.
the other side
And
alive
four
and
musicians
still
too.
like, yeah, exactly. So it was like, oh, she's a good one. And then so we ended up kind of getting our own place while I was down there. And in that same time, a friend of ours had turned me on to internet marketing, which was kind of like in its infancy. And
Yeah.
I saw that as like, oh wow, that could be a way that I could fund the band, so we don't have to rely on gigs for our income. Because
Mm.
like when you're playing gigs, a lot of times you have to like take whatever, any shitty gig that you, I'm sorry, any crappy
No,
gig
it's
that you
fine.
get,
Yeah.
just, and it was like, man, this, it's just like, I don't like those gigs. I don't like having to do something just because like that's all I can get. And then in turn, like, so I got into internet marketing, and then I found out that I actually really enjoyed that. And I started a video and voiceover business where I was making like videos for people and then doing the voiceovers for them because I already had the recording gear. And
Oh,
then I
wow.
started seeing like, wow, if I really like work hard at this and get smart at how I'm marketing and bidding on jobs and stuff, like I'm actually seeing the results much faster and much easier than like music. And wow,
Mm.
interesting. I kind of am like starting to move over there, and
Yeah.
then had replaced my temp job income in like 2 weeks from that stuff. And so I
Oh,
did that
wow.
for a couple years, and then we moved back here to Minneapolis, and I got a job at like one of the fastest growing startups in town, called Lead Pages, and that was where I
Yep.
like really learned like marketing and how to like grow audiences and grow a business. And by the time I left, like 3 years later, I was number 11 on the team, and we had grown to like, I think it was over 150. I don't know, it was like pretty like
Oh, my
large numbers,
goodness.
and they had,
Wow.
yeah, we had like secured like 20 million in venture capital and all that stuff. And so I got to see like what it actually took to like grow a business. Plus, like I would do a lot of consulting for our users to make sure like they were, having results with Lead Pages. And then
Right.
in that time, had created a software company, but then ended up selling it, moved on to another app company called Zipify, where I'm at currently, which is an amazing company and app and great like model for just like how I generally want to be in life. And while there, have started several like e-commerce businesses because that's like the field we're in and that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and then yeah, like just there as the director of marketing for Zipify apps, helping people sell more of their e-commerce products.
Sensational. So quite a ride, I guess, and from, I suppose it's one of those
Yeah.
things where you just sort of, you went where, I guess, the intuition, the opportunity sort of guided you. So from music
Yep.
and kind of having to work really hard and grind it out. I totally get that, man. Like I spent my late teens, early 20s at college with my best mates, playing in bands, and we would sort of hustled to get the really crappy opening slot on like a Tuesday evening or something at some dive bar with about 10 people there, 8 of which were there to see us because they were our friends and they were just trying to support us, compared to
Right.
then maybe working up to get like a headlining Saturday night gig at one of the more prestigious gigs in town, and all of the
Yep.
calls and the schmoozing and all the stuff in between. And you get paid. Even like our biggest ever show we did was like I think it was when we launched a little EP, like a little 5-track CD that we
Hmm.
self-funded, and I think we made like $200. And we had the 4 of us,
Yep.
plus we had, a sound guy to pay, and we had like, 3 other musicians who kind of helped out to fill out the sound and make a bit of a spectacle on the night. Plus we had the opening, and oh man, I'm just thinking, there's a better way to live, surely, So I completely get that. We just go, all right.
Yeah.
And especially, it sounds like a really similar evolution. Like I started dating my wife when I was in the band, and then we married, and then we decided to plan a family, and then it was like going out rehearsing once or twice a week and playing shows all over the countryside at weird hours of the day and night, not really compatible with being in a steady relationship and
Right.
having young children. So so
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
exciting.
Absolutely.
But I mean, especially you'd probably appreciate too that everything you've learned so far has been a natural springboard to the next thing, and all these skills kind of compound. So
Yep.
what you learned by the grind and the hustle and the networking and the relationships in music is like a perfect set of skills to take into corporates and to take into marketing and apps and other things like that, right? Like it's just scaled up at a different sort of level.
Yeah. Definitely. And that was like kind of one of the, hindsight things that came up of just like, wow, I didn't realize how much marketing I actually just naturally did because, like you got to try and get people involved. You got to try and get people to come out to your shows, all that kind of stuff. And
Mm.
then when you find an area where people actually care about stuff, where like, it's hard to get people to care about music. But if it's like, a business they like or something, it's just like, wow, that was easy. Holy crap. I've been like putting my efforts in the wrong area. So let me
Uh,
just like go over here and do them over there. And then like, wow, it works really well.
so this is a beautiful little piece that I want to kind of reframe and take a little bit sideways. So, which, before we went online, I did warn you that it may go that way. So the
Yeah.
premise of our conversation is about being a dad and about, normalizing the fact that dads struggle. Dads sometimes have a tough time juggling their different roles, responsibilities. And I want there with these conversations to be more of an opening, more of an opportunity for men to talk really frankly about, well, I had an addiction or I suffered some chronic mental health problems or whatever. And then I learned
Hmm.
some stuff and I grew and I evolved and I solved it or I overcame it and now I'm a better human, because I feel
Yeah.
like the more of these raw, vulnerable, open stories we can tell, the better. So what I want to ask you,
Hmm.
Jeff, is the what lessons could you say you could take from what you've learned in marketing and in connecting with people and in that sense that sometimes when you've got two choices in front of you, one feels like an absolute grind and a real drudgery, and then one feels like it's just so easy and so flow oriented. What have you
Hmm.
taken from that that's kind of informed being a parent and being a partner with young children?
Yeah. Great question. So I kind of, how I just in general like go about life is that way. Like if this feels like
Mm-hmm.
super duper hard, not saying like you never have to do hard things, but like if it feels like always a grind, always tough, always just like oh so draining, that's telling you that maybe you need to like either fix the system or like maybe like go back to square one and just reassess.
Mm.
And how that applies to like kids and stuff. My wife and I feel like we find ourselves a lot of times when we start feeling like we're saying like, no, don't do that, don't do that, like try just
Mm.
like you're always on your kids about. That's when we're like, oh wait, okay, this is like feeling really hard, and what if we just backed off? Because usually we're the problem, it's not them. Usually we're the ones that are like, I don't want them to do that. I don't want them to do this. When they're just like, I'm a kid. This is my job to like
Mm.
spill stuff on the floor, break stuff. But, like if you can just back up and as much as it sometimes sucks to be like, I'm going to sit here and watch this progress, even if that
Mm.
means it's going to be kind of a pain in the butt for me, it
Yeah.
actually ends up being more enjoyable for everybody.
Can I just say, like, for anyone listening, like, and for those watching, I am laughing my head off as Jeff's talking about this because I can relate so much with what you're saying. Like, there have been so many cases of me just going, what about like getting really intense with my kids. Like,
Yeah.
use your cutlery, don't use your fingers to eat, clean up your bedroom, make your bed, all the stupid
Yep.
crap that's the stereotypes of parents being grumpy at their kids about, right? Like, and then exactly what you said, when I recognize in myself that there's all this heaviness and this feeling of it being hard, giving myself the space to just take a step back and really reflect on what's going on under the surface here. What is driving
Hmm.
this behavior from me? It's never about my kid.
Yeah.
It's always about me. And it's always, I've discovered, it's like the train of thought that I kind of follow. It goes something like this. Okay, so why am I so worried about my kids eating with their fingers at the dinner table? Well, because you're supposed to have good manners. Okay, so why is that so important? Well, because if we have good manners, then when we go out to somebody else's house or to a restaurant or some public place where people might be looking at us, then we're eating with our fingers, they'll judge us badly. Okay, right. So what difference does that
Hmm.
make? Well, I don't want to be judged or perceived badly as a parent because my kids are eating with their fingers. Uh-huh. So the root of it is I don't want to look bad. And when it's all about me
Hmm.
and it's not about my kids, then obviously that's a recipe for disaster because they're not measuring up to some internalized expectation I've set that I wasn't even aware of. So
Right.
that's so
Yep.
great, and it's a beautiful way to rethink about it, to go, right, if it feels really heavy and really hard, maybe it's not the external circumstances, maybe it's whatever I'm bringing to
Hmm.
it that needs to shift.
And it doesn't always like 100% of the time work that way, but if you can catch it, a lot of times it does.
Right.
Sometimes it's just like they're at the stage where it's just hard and it's a
Yep.
phase and they'll get over it. But a lot of times, help making it so as like adults, we can not bear through it, but like we can like just be a little more flexible. It just
Mm.
makes it like more relaxing for you as a parent to enjoy being a parent versus like, man, my kid is just an a-hole right now and there's nothing I can do about it. Whereas if you just like chill out, and like I'm not good at this all the time, but like it's
Oh, look.
definitely
Yeah,
something
me
usually
too,
like
right?
my wife and I will actually like notice each other and be like, wow, when I like just said, you know what, F it. That's when all of a sudden it like lightened up and it got more fun and we actually had a good time.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. It's so true, right? Like I can really clearly picture stuff in my head, and I'm sure people listening, you'd be able to see those moments where you almost just throw your hands up in the air, let it all go, and then almost miraculously the situation, the tension dissipates, it resolves itself.
Yeah.
And like you say, everyone's having fun again. You're like, oh man, that was all my own crap. What was that
Yeah.
all about? If only I'd have let. So it's just
Yeah.
beautiful. And I agree. Like it's not always that. Sometimes, your kid's sick or they're just kind of testing boundaries and you're constantly having to set and reset and reset and recommunicate the boundaries. Okay,
Hmm.
listen, that's not okay. You can't do those sorts of things. It's not how we treat other people or
Yep.
whatever the case is. But sometimes, yeah, it's just whatever's going on for us. And I mean, have you found this, Jeff, with your
Yeah.
with your children? They're like little antenna or tuning forks to whatever is going on for you and your wife. Like if you
Yep.
guys are feeling a bit
Yep.
out of sorts or a bit stressed, the kids will suddenly start acting up.
Yep. And so I can't remember. I think it was this woman called Dr. Becky, who we follow on Instagram. She's like a child psychologist, I think. For any Dr. Becky fans, I apologize if I, misrepresent her, but like one of the things that she talked about
Torches
in
and
lieu of,
pitchforks, man,
or
they'll
kind
be
of like
after
in
you.
regards to that, yeah, she calls it the hot cocoa breath. And speaking of that antenna, that's something that I've noticed that um, really like works when tensions are high, emotions are big, and the hot cocoa breath is just like a like you're blowing the marshmallows out of the hot cocoa,
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's
right.
called that so like so they understand what it is, but like really it's just in through your nose, out through your mouth, and then like you do that
Mm,
so they can hear you, and it's like
yeah.
surprising how that like my son, he's 3, so he's like right in the heart of like no, just like crying and stuff, and he'll come for a hug and I'll do that to him almost every time, and he'll almost like not instantly but very quickly calm down, and it's like,
Mm,
wow, that is crazy how that works. Because if it's like if you project that calm energy, they're looking for you to like help them regulate because they don't really know how.
yeah.
And if you can do your best to regulate, they'll be like, okay, I can understand like how to deal with like everything, or maybe not understand, but I can just like intuitively, okay, maybe I can calm down
Yeah.
and we can like talk to mom or dad about it.
I love that.
Um,
It's so
which kind
interesting
of
too.
like,
Go on.
oh yeah. So as we were talking before earlier today, I took a part of a table to the eye, and
Yes.
um,
I'm sorry for
like
laughing. The story, I'm just
instant,
seeing it in my
yeah,
head.
yeah. It for anybody who can't see me, I have like kind of a bloody scab over my eyebrow, and it hurt really, really bad. My initial reaction wasn't even to like yell at my kid, it was more to just yell because it hurt so bad. Um,
Mm.
but then that same thing kind of like ran through my head where Dr. Becky, we learn a lot from her, where she also was like, usually the person that like causes the infliction or whatever usually feels worse than anybody because they don't know how to deal with like what they did. This was a complete accident, but my reaction I think scared him
Mm.
and scared my son, who threw the piece of table at my head. And um I was like, oh, I got to stop yelling. And then I was trying to, like, I think it scared him so much that, and he also, I think he knew that he hurt me, that
Yeah.
he like didn't want to come over. But I just like stopped yelling and was like, oh, it hurts really bad. But, tried to like just put on a calm voice and like a calm demeanor to like diffuse the situation so I don't like scar him emotionally for
Right.
like the next 20 years or whatever.
Which, if we're being honest, we're probably going to do anyway at some point. Like our kids are probably going to need therapy. That's just the
Yeah.
reality of it. But no, I get
Yeah.
what you're saying totally. And I think I love that the hot cocoa breath. I'm actually going to talk to my kids about that. I think that's so cool. Like my kids are older than yours. My son's 11 and my daughter's 15. But I think
Mm,
for some of the, like one
still
thing that I've
valuable.
picked up, oh, absolutely, because it's actually, and when I think as you were explaining it, I was thinking to what I know about the way our nervous system works and the way our breath helps with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we get sort of spiked
Mm-hmm.
into our fight flight kind of reflex, right? That amygdala hijacky kind of thing, one of the quickest and most effective ways to down regulate back to peace is exhale, long, slow breath out, right? So
Definitely.
a good friend of mine said to me
Yep.
once, when it comes to, at the time I was having recurring panic attacks, and she said, here's the thing. I learned this when I was in like social work and supporting people with anxiety. If in doubt, breathe out. And she said, just take a big deep breath in
Mm-hmm.
and then make your exhale last as long as possible. And it teaches your body that everything is fine. We can lower the stress
Yeah.
hormones and the reaction and the energy and all that and just bring it
Yeah.
all back down. And you're right
Yep.
too. Like when you've got your kids right there, especially when they're young, they're so sensitive to our little shifts and fluctuations in emotion and energy. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
just beautiful. Like it's a really great image that kids will pick up on straight away too. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
It's something
Yep.
you hear, it's a
And
calming
like,
sound.
yeah, and you want your kids to model your behavior. And so it's like you get to choose what behavior you get to present to them.
Right.
And like I never enjoyed, like yelling or getting like, oh, what did you do that for? When it's like, well, I didn't do it on purpose. I'm sorry. Like,
Mm,
so is like, again, I'm not perfect at it, but like anytime I can catch myself, I always like want to try and present a calm front,
yeah.
even if I'm upset. Like, let's like calm down so that they can see like when they get to, like an age where like they're dealing with a lot of stuff, they can be like, okay, just like calm down. I got to just like chill out a little bit and process whatever's going on.
Right. Right.
I feel like
I think
if I could
it's
leave them with anything, that would probably be the best thing I could do for them.
mm. I mean the whole the thing Viktor Frankl talks about in his book Man's Search for Meaning, like the gap between stimulus and response, right? For us to have that little intervening space in between those two things where we get to process and then choose and then go, okay, this just happened. I'm not an animal. I don't
Hmm.
have to fly straight into an instinctive reaction. I have the
Right.
ability to pause and create a space,
Yep.
and in that space reflect and then choose what I want my next action to be, and it becomes response rather than react.
Yep.
That
And
skill,
Israel, I think
and
like you just hit on something that like not only as parents but just in life is separating that like instinctive reaction to choosing your reaction. Like
right,
that I feel like that was a skill that I practiced a lot, and like none of the stuff I'm talking about I'm a pro at, but I feel like I'm better than a novice at it.
right,
And just being able to choose how you react to things or how you think about things, I think is one of the most empowering things that you can do for yourself, especially when you're dealing with your kids. Just because like you can choose to, like, follow what you learned as a kid from your parents,
Yeah.
or you can choose to take what you like and then leave the rest. You don't have to
Yeah.
respond exactly like your parents. Like if you spilled, milk on the floor and your parents yelled at you, you don't have to respond that same way to your kids. You can decide to be like, we'll clean it up, no biggie. Or
Right.
you can choose to get mad, whatever you want to do. But ultimately, we all have the power to choose, and it's like very empowering knowing that, at any given time, you're the person that gets to decide how you react to things.
100%. I think that, and I think, like, I agree with, I'm right there with you, right? Like, it's a practice, and we're never going to be masters of these skills because we're human, right? We're not kind of Buddhist monks sitting on a mountaintop somewhere, doing nothing but working on this stuff every day. But the better we get at it, the stronger we make those muscles, so that a considered response is our default rather than an emotional reaction. Those
Hmm.
muscles that we build end up becoming stronger, and the habit of pausing and then choosing our response becomes easier to intercept as we get new stimulus, new events. And
Yeah.
then, like you say, how we can then use that to show up for our kids, for our partner, how we can role model those things. I mean, I'm sure you can relate to this. I have heard myself in reactionary moments say things to my kids that my dad or my stepdad or my mum said to me when I was a kid. And it has just come from the vault. It has not even been like a conscious, it's just blah. And then something like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever said that sentence before in my life. And that was like something I heard when I was
Right.
6, right? So that,
Yeah.
I guess, tapping into that so instinctively, it's almost like whatever tools we've got, the better the tools, the better the choices we can make, the better we can work, right? So
Right.
this idea of choice and respond rather than react, it's just another tool. And it does, when we, in a calm, rational moment, when we reflect on what was our upbringing like, and what did our parents say to us, and do we want to perpetuate
Hmm.
that, or do we want to choose a slightly different path? I think that's where we get to become better as dads.
Yeah. Definitely. And one thing, kind of expanding on the choice, like very recently, like I've been just thinking about, because like both of our kids are like really personable, and sometimes it's almost like for other kids, they're like, wait, like, scary, because like our kids are like so friendly, and
Right.
they'll be like, hey, how's it going? And it's almost like a put off to other kids. And like one thing I want my choices to do is empower that stuff, like however they naturally are. I want my choices of reactions whenever possible to like empower that instead of stifle something. So
Yeah.
like going back to, spilling milk on the floor,
Mm.
um if it was like, yeah, I did it because I thought it would be like a fun experiment, inside I'd probably be like, why the hell did you spill milk? But like outside I would choose to be like, oh, interesting, tell me more about that, and then can you help me clean it up, or something, like just
Right.
like to not stifle like whatever instinct told them to spill milk on the floor. I feel like that's
Yeah.
a bad example, but I think you get the
I get
point.
what you mean, though. I mean, it brings to mind a story from when my daughter was about, probably 6 or 7, and we lived in Sydney, and we had some neighbours who, I was a photographer at the time, and they wanted me to photograph their kid's birthday party, one of their daughters. They had 2 daughters, and one of them had chronic kind of illness from a very, very young age because the mum got very sick when she was pregnant. So this daughter needed a lot of extra attention, needed an oxygen tank to follow her around, So it was quite a lot, like a high level of care needed for this one child. And then the other child, born healthy, growing up conventionally well, all the rest of it. But for one reason or another, I was there, and this family was so friendly. They said, look, bring your daughter along because we're going to have a couple of entertainers, and I think it'll be good for her to participate too. And we're neighbors, so let's get to know each other better. It was a really beautiful event. Anyway, my daughter, similar by the sound of it to your two kids, at that age, she was very extroverted, very friendly, very outgoing, would say hello, would communicate really, like she was super articulate at a very young age. And that I totally get and can relate that other kids sometimes found that a bit intimidating. They're like, oh wow, that's I'm
Hmm.
not up to that. And comparison kicks in and all the things. But this particular event that I was photographing, there was a period where the entertainers had all the kids sitting in a group on the floor, and they were asking them to call out different things, and it was always my daughter. And I'm like, oh my god, I felt at the time, knowing nothing about what I know now and what we just spoke about, I was like, oh geez, don't know, like sweetheart, sit, let some of the other kids, don't dominate the whole thing, don't take it over, because that
Right.
was what I was raised with. That was the experience I had. I was a fairly outgoing guy, and I got really shut down very early. So I internalized this idea that don't speak up, don't put yourself out there, make sure you're smaller than you really are, so that you
Hmm.
don't get unnecessary, hurtful attention brought to you, what have you. And I realized as I was, well, actually, I didn't realize, but I said that out of instinct, out of my own baggage. And then the dad of these daughters whose party it was, he said, no, no, it's fine. Let her participate because she's actually, and I love this reframe. He said, she's demonstrating to the other kids what it's like to participate. She's showing them
Hmm.
how they can show up, how they can get involved. I went,
I love parents like
oh,
that. I love parents like that.
it was a game changer. It was such a game changer for me. And it stuck with me, ever to now, clearly. But I was just like, wow, I
Right.
was making my daughter small so other kids and other parents, again, back to our earlier part, didn't judge me badly. But a
Hmm.
quick reframe, it's those people who are leaders, who are stepping out, who then empower other people to go, oh, well, if they can do it, maybe I can do it too.
Hmm.
Fantastic. So, all right. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
tell me about some of the things that when it comes to work, because one of the things that's beautiful and different about the role you're in is that you work for a big company and you've had experience in startups. And so I guess it's that in a way, your experience work wise has been a bit of a hybrid of entrepreneurship through the startup thing, which is very much small
Hmm.
business, hustling, being creative, thinking innovatively. But now Zipify are a large company. There's structure, there's systems and processes, and there's all of the stuff that you would expect at a typical corporate. Now there's a bit of a different flavor, I'm imagining, to that work for you, that it's perhaps a little bit less of the scary entrepreneur, got to hustle to make a buck for himself, and it's a little bit more stable and secure. But
Yeah.
even within that, like a lot of the people I've chatted with so far have their own businesses. So this is a beautiful contrast and counterpoint to that. You are in a more of a regular job, but obviously still in a leadership role. How does that impact, and how has your work impacted your role as a dad and as a husband or as a partner? And then what have you struggled with in that context, and how have you kind of worked on that?
Yeah. So just to clarify, Zipify technically, like for me, it's like, wow, it's pretty good size, but technical business terms, it's probably still like a small business.
Oh,
Between like our
okay.
three brands, we're at like 150. Um, but
Ah, right.
there are definitely structures, and there are definitely, like it's more stable, and everything you mentioned. It's just we're not like suit and tie people.
Right.
I've actually
It's
learned a lot
not like a
about.
Google or an Apple, that sort of scale. Like it's
No, no.
okay.
And I actually enjoy that about it, because you have a little bit more freedom to explore things, and to almost like what do they call it, like an entrepreneur, where it's almost like you have entrepreneurial
Right.
tendencies, but you're at a company. Um, so that has been cool, but like with the the guy who's the CEO, Ezra. I think he's younger than me, but not that that matters. But I've learned just like so much about just how to show up in general, for myself, for anybody I work with, for my wife, for my kids. And
Mm.
like one the things that like I always try to work on, and I feel like I've gotten way better at it as of, like, I guess my time at Zipify is doing my best to like shut work off after work hours
Mm,
and
right.
not going into it until the next day. And what's great is Ezra is totally cool with that, and he create like it's top down, like he creates it from the top and it goes down, and they truly mean it. Like, your personal time is your personal time, and if I
Mm,
happen to message you and you don't get back to me until the next day and it's after work hours, that's totally fine. Whereas like most
right.
companies and businesses are like, no, you got to get back to me like right now. And I I I feel like just building on that, one of my personal um, kind of like not mission, I guess, but one of the things that I try and practice, and again, I'm not great at it, but I'm maybe better than a newbie at it, is just trying to like be present with my kids and with my wife,
Right.
because prior to any given point, I always either literally was on my phone, like checking messages and email, or thinking about work stuff, when that was like robbing them of time with me, even though I was there. Um,
Mm,
just like seeing how, Ezra, like when I first joined the company, I went out to hang out with him, and we went like berry picking in the middle of the day. And it was like, dude, how do you like have, I mean, you're the CEO of this company, and like you have two other branches of this company that are all like very successful. Like how are we out here right now? And he's like, dude, I just um, you know, I schedule it, and like I have people that can handle stuff without me. And it was like kind of like, the start
wow.
of a little bit of a transformation for me, to just really be paying attention to like, okay, if I am here, how am I showing up? And am I being like, am I being the version of me that I would want to see somebody else show to me? And
Right.
I would say like I've at least gotten better at it. I still probably, if you ask my wife, I probably could be more present, but I feel like I've at least made like some improvements, because I don't know, I feel like that's important, for both like the relationship with my wife and also for my kids to see, because like it bugs me when they mimic us on our phones, and I feel like my wife and I, we
Yeah.
actually do a really good job of trying to limit that in front of them. But even so,
Mm,
they're still like, they play with like fake phones, and they're like looking down at, and it's like, that kills me. Um,
yeah.
but I
I
also,
hear that.
it's kind of like the nature of the beast at this point.
It is. I mean, my daughter has her own phone, and she has done since she was about like since high school started, since grade 7, right? So that was part of the contract that when she was at, and this is coming off the back of us traveling for 2.5 years together as a family. So it was a very, very big step from being an insulated family of four, always together, always with each other, to them suddenly both going off to school.
Yeah.
Um, but then our son has kind of inherited an older phone that he uses just for Spotify and a few little games and things here and there. And now on the Wi-Fi, he'll start reading the news and he'll look at videos and he'll do some other stuff. And I absolutely get that too. Like we've been running online businesses now, my wife and I, for geez, 6, 7 years or so, and that's through both of their early
Hmm.
and middle childhood sort of phase. And they've seen what we've role modeled, which is that sometimes we're just always on our phone working, for
Yeah.
better or for worse. It's just the nature of it. But I think it's that,
Yeah.
one of the things that I think kind of echoes what Ezra has shown, demonstrated, and allowed is the creation of boundaries. And just to say, okay, so the boundary here
Hmm.
is you have your personal time and you are completely entitled to, and I expect you to respect and preserve that as a leader. Like, I think that's amazing. And then in the parenting space, you go, okay, the boundary is this. You're allowed to play with the device or use screen time or what have you, this time to that time or under these circumstances. Other than that, put it away. Let's connect. Let's be present. Let's do stuff together that doesn't
Right.
involve screens, right? So that's,
That
yeah.
that's
And
ultimately why it kills me. I just want to like foster that. Like, let's connect. Let's be in the room together. Not like let's be
yeah,
in the room together, but we're all like on social media, and it's like, what's the point of even being together at that point?
Yeah, I totally hear you. And I mean that's something I certainly see a lot more with my daughter, my 15-year-old, because her girlfriends are there and she's having text message conversations. And then there's she wants to go onto online shopping and search for secondhand clothes on Depop and all this sort of gear, right? So there's always that going on in the background too. Where I'm like, like we're trying to watch a movie as a family. Put your bloody phone down, would you please? Like, no one's going to
Yeah.
die if you don't respond to the message the second it turns up on your phone. So yeah, it's a continuum though. Like it's a spectrum of right. There's really really crap, and then there's really really awesome, and we're all somewhere sprinkled along that, and we're just trying to work
Yeah.
whereabouts we are and whereabouts we want to
Definitely.
get to. So look, I'm really aware of time here, and I think that I've really enjoyed our chat, and I really would love to learn more about your work. But I think to draw this to some sort of conclusion here, if there was one thing you were able to sort of boil it down for dads to say, right, here's what I've learned, and this is one thing that really, really helped me on my adventure of being a dad and, in a leadership role in my company and a partner and trying to juggle all these different hats we all wear. What would you say would be that one thing to help other dads thrive?
Yeah. And, I thought I had a different answer, but after a conversation, I think it is the power of choice. Because in any given moment, no matter what is going on, you always have the power to choose what you do, how you react. You have the power to choose everything. And so you have the power to choose not only how you show up to work, but you have the power to show up or to choose how you show up for your kids, all that kind of stuff. And like you are a powerful being. So you get to decide what world and what kind of like sort of environment you create for your kids. So if you have that choice, like it's with great power comes great responsibility, right? You have the responsibility to like empower your kids as best you can because
Mm,
ultimately if they don't get it from you, they're going to get it somewhere. So, it would make sense to
right.
like maybe just choose a path that feels good for you and that also helps your kids.
So much I love about that, Jeff. I feel like in my head, I'm just like dropping mic drop after mic drop as you were going through that. Like there's so much in there. It's just great. So, look, thank you so much for the
That's
conversation
awesome.
today. I know this has been really helpful for a lot of other dads, and it's great to have experience of somebody in a slightly different way of working, really young kids compared to my slightly older kids. It's just beautiful. So, I'm really grateful to have connected and for your time. And, I mean, what would you suggest if someone wanted to learn more about the work you're doing and what Zipify apps do and that kind of stuff? Would it just be a case of jumping on the Google machine?
Yeah. You could just go to jeffwenberg.com. That's
Mm-hmm.
Wenberg. And like, it's just like a placeholder. And you can contact me from there if you want to contact me or if you want to check out Zipify. I do most of the marketing stuff for them, and that's just zipify.com.
Sensational. Thank you so very much for your time. Listeners, thank you for joining us for another incredible Dad's Guide to Thrive chat, and we will see you on the next episode. Thank you, Jeff.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining me on this most recent episode of Dad's Guide to Thrive as part of the Illuminating Lives podcast. I really appreciate you being here, and I would really appreciate if you resonated with this interview, if you wouldn't mind sharing it with the people in your life. Help spread this message, spread these conversations to dads, men, and women everywhere so that we can all be better. Write a comment, hit the like button, subscribe if you want to get notified for the next episode. And please remember that I'm a one-to-one coach and a professional speaker, helping dads in business feel more peace, be more at ease, and feel less stress and be better able to be the parent, husband, and leader in their lives that they want to be. So if you'd like to work with me or have me present to your organization, please contact me via my website or social media channels. The details are all in the description. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. And in the meantime, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be loved, and may you live with ease.